Should we talk about the, up until recently, president-elect of the Oxford Union? James, this is a story that you've been very much involved in, leading the campaign against George, I forget what his last name
Abaraonye.
Abaraonye, who was president-elect. He was going to take office as president of the Oxford Union. Charlie Kirk is assassinated, a man who Abaraonye himself had debated not too long before. He takes to both WhatsApp and to Instagram to essentially sort of luxuriate in the man's death. And as a consequence of this, Oxford Union members rallied against him, seemed to have ousted him as part of the internal processes. You can elaborate as a former president yourself. Last time I checked, he's refusing to accept the result of the election, sort of Donald Trump 2020 style.
Yeah, stop the steal.
Yeah.
It's going to stop the steal.
Do you want to tell us your role in this and also where we're at with this particular story?
Yeah, gladly. I was as a student, I was an unsuccessful student politician. I kind of got halfway up the union's cursus honorum and lost. And then in COVID, in the first lockdown, having just left government, I thought it would be funny to run for a joke to be president. And then I accidentally won. And I became, I think, the oldest president ever or something. And so this was because they put all the voting online. And so all the alumni kind of dug out old membership cards, went, oh, this would be funny, wouldn't it? And then, of course, I had to actually do it alongside a full-time job. And it was absolutely horrendous, and had to deal with student politics after you've just been dealing with adult politics. So I was not keen to have to go back into any of this stuff. I became the secretary of the charity that owns the buildings, and they saw this happen, saw nothing else. So I resigned from this, partly because I'd heard about the visa ban threats that the US Deputy Secretary of State was going to put on people. My wife is American, and I don't dislike my mother-in-law in any way, but especially not enough to want to get a visa ban from not being able to go. So this resignation as well, because as you say, actually, it was just awful what he did. He came out and said, Charlie Kirk's been shot, like, let's effing go, and cheering and laughing. And then, of course, the shot that the picture of Abaraonye in his tracky bottoms and his Ugg boots, standing across the beautiful Oxford Union buildings, next to Charlie Kirk in his suit looking nice, who wiped the floor with the kid, by the way. And Abaraonye didn't shake his hand afterwards, walked away, yawned kind of dramatically, just rude and in general. But the idea that he had debated against this guy, like looked him in the whites of his eyes, and then was so cheap and crass about it, and then kind of refused to apologize for a while until he maybe realized that he wasn't going to get all the kind of fancy internships that he thought he might get. So a big campaign went to get this guy ousted and all the sort of Byzantine internal rules. But he's now appealing against this 2/3 defeat of him, saying, oh, no, but someone else broke the rules as well and all the rest of it. It's just so deeply unedifying for the whole thing. And this is, I suppose, what happens when you get a bunch of kids who've been told that they're brilliant and wonderful, and then have to actually face the real world and go, it's moving into the sowing from what they've reaped, or the reaping from what they sow territory.
I think the Ugg boot should have been the last straw, to be honest, just on purely aesthetic grounds. But it
seems like a real scumbag, doesn't it?
Yeah, and then the Times did a piece just to make it even worse of him having a pop at the current president's girlfriend. And just like, what? This is really, really unedifying. And there have been plenty of other scandals in recent years where there was an Israel-Palestine debate, as there always is. And people said that there were people screaming swear words and threats at them in Arabic, and all these sort of various threats going on. And the problem is, and the reason that people should care, is that those sorts of scandals have always happened in the Oxford Union. There's a great sort of student newspaper front page when Michael Gove was president, and it was like 5-in-a-bed romp kind of thing, all that sort of stuff, right? It was incidental. It was a bug. I think it's become a feature because people have been getting involved in it, and I suspect, by extension, getting involved in other institutions, classic British institutions, who want to destroy the thing because they think it's colonialist or they think it's evil, and they want to bring it down. And that is a really deep problem. If we don't defend those institutions, you get people who either don't care or, as I say, go, I'm going to decolonize this, it's really terrible, and then we lose it and you can't get these things back.
Would I be right in saying that this gentleman has been the beneficiary of positive discrimination? Because I gather he got an A and 2 Bs in his A-levels.
He did.
I got 2 A's and a B. I never considered applying for Oxford.
Yeah,
and I got A stars now, is right?
You get A stars now as well, so ABB is actually worse than it looks. And he put this on his LinkedIn. He didn't need to do this. Someone just saw this on LinkedIn. It's almost like a boast. And some lefty friends of mine have been quite radicalized by this, where they assumed that sort of positive discrimination would be, you got two guys, they've both got 3 A stars.
Oh,
You
yeah.
go for the guy who's had the crap upbringing, or even the guy who's from an ethnic minority or whatever, and that would be fair to balance it out. But the fact that this guy has done so badly, it then shows he can't debate, he can't spell in some of his letters. And he's even, I think he said, some of the phrasing he got right was just completely wrong as well. So it's just embarrassing when he writes these letters and people are having to go through and correct basic spelling mistakes.
But
It's not a good-
James,
not a good
isn't
look.
this, to play devil's advocate, isn't this a free speech issue and you're engaging in cancel culture?
Yeah, some people have come out and said this, and Toby Young has said this. I
Has
think
he?
Alongside, yeah, and he and I have debated a bit about this in the past. I think the reason that's not true is that whilst he should not go to prison for saying it's really good that this guy is dead, right? He should be open to the consequences of that in social settings, and that members of any club, the Oxford Union in particular, wherever else, have the right to free assembly. And therefore going through the process of going, you know what, you're not a fit and proper person to run a debating society because you cheered when a guy who liked debating got killed for debating. That is, again, people exercising their right to free assembly.
It's
and
not
free
the
expression
ideal.
as well.
It's not the ideal job for him. Yeah.
It's not great, is it? No.
Well,
There
that's
are other jobs out there.
But it's not cancel culture when a political party gets rid of their leader, for instance, because they said something absolutely outrageous. It is.
I
a
thought it was
members'
when
organisation.
comedians can't get gigs and stuff like that.
I think the attempt to kind of present this as a cancel culture thing, I think obviously there was a well-meaning tendency on our side of the free speech argument to show consistency, which is completely fine, but I think it doesn't necessarily apply in this particular situation. If there was a conversation about some kind of executive at the Oxford Union just forcing him out without going to the members, you could understand there would be more grounds for that. There were some people who were saying he'd be kicked out of the university. I wouldn't support that. He can go and say whatever he wants at his own time, but that doesn't mean that, your members and the people that work in your organisation can't have a say. Like, it wouldn't be like if the Tories get rid of another leader, which may well happen soon, who knows. You wouldn't be like, that's outrageous act of cancel culture. They can decide who represents them.
I think I said in a piece, you wouldn't want your cancer doctor rooting for the tumours,
Yeah,
right?
because that is the thing. Without wanting to get too misty, because I didn't go to Oxford. I've spoken to Oxford Union once, but its reputation as being a place of freedom of speech, and always having to weather these controversies because some far right politician had been invited, or back in the day Malcolm X was invited to speak, or whatever. The fact that institution could be led by someone who so doesn't believe in free speech that someone they debated within weeks of them being shot, they then celebrate that assassination. I mean, that says a lot about the kind of capture that you're talking about, James.